Well, shall we get started, Mary? So we'll set the intention around mental health for, the ancestral patterns around mental health for this session this evening.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, because we're doing this for the healing of us, who are all here currently on this Zoom, but we're also opening this up to our ancestral collective. So any of the ancestors who want to come into this and be a part of this healing, I'm going to invite them. And what I'm going to do is everybody has a gateway ancestor. That's the person who it's the one ancestor who's really got your back and really will make sure that the right person comes through. And in fact, during this course, we'll show you how to connect to your own gateway ancestor. We haven't got time to do that tonight. We'll be doing that on a later one, but I'll do that for you all now. So we're inviting everyone's gateway ancestor to come in and help bring whoever in our ancestral tree requires healing. And I'm lighting this candle now in the light of wholeness, truth, and love, so that we may work for ourselves, for our ancestors, and for the highest good of all concerned. Thank you. There, okay.
Thank you, Mary. So we're just going to start tuning into the field, and during the session, we might invite you to hold over different areas of your body, and this just helps to bring oxygenated blood and awareness to different areas that may need healing. So if it's comfortable to do so, you can hold the areas. You might even want to lie down for a little while. You might want to shuffle around and make yourself comfortable. And then we're just going to start by taking some really nice deep breaths into your belly. Nice, deep, expansive breaths. Into the front, the sides, and the back of the belly, abdominal breaths. Really coming into your body, coming into your breath. I'm really starting to get a sense of connecting in with each other and connecting in with our ancestors. It's really allowing that kind of potential for that to happen and that possibility for that to happen. And then with every out breath, releasing, relaxing, letting go, really giving yourself permission to let go of any tension, any emotion, any stress, anything that you're holding, breathing it out with the out breath. And Mary, do you want to give a sense of what you're picking up when you're tuning into the field?
From an ancestral point of view, there's an interesting kind of lamination. So collectively, the past 3 generations are really ready. Then there's a space of almost an absent set of generations who are ready to be connected, and a sense that I don't know if you're picking this up, that there's so much that they want to help with and let go of, and then they're not even sure that that it's going to be held. But we're reassuringly saying, yes, we are here and ready. The generations above that are very able, and there's a huge wisdom there. Okay, so let's see where that's coming from. So what I think I'm just trying to say is that there is a lot here to be worked with and ready to flow more freely.
So we're going to, it's interesting, I'm experiencing it almost like as a shuffling. It feels very kind of like shuffly, like not anxious, but like there's a lot of movement, almost like slightly excitement, but just it feels like lots sort of moving parts. So what we're going to look at to start with, we're going to look at the DNA, and we're going to look at the energy field around the cells that determines the chemical process that drive epigenetic damage and epigenetic repair, and work by shifting the energy of the body and the cells to reprogram the expression of the genetic code. So that's what we're looking at on that level. So it's very kind of going into the body, and we're looking something inherited from the collective. So it's not necessarily to do with the maternal paternal line. It's something much more collective in nature. Do you have any sense of what it is, Mary? I'm just working out what I feel it is.
What's your feeling? It's something about people not being able to have their say, not being so repressed, I think.
Yeah, it's coming
shut
up
down.
Class status struggle. So it may well be that aspect as well, and not being able to fulfill potential.
That's what it feels like. It feels like 3 generations of absolutely. And I understand what you're saying about this kind of wriggling around saying, and we need to say this, and we've got that to say, and we need to tell them this. It's a huge amount. It's like a massive download on its way.
Yeah. And as I'm tuning into this whole picture of the sort of class status struggle and fulfill potential, it feels like poverty was a big theme in that. And I know in the chat earlier there was you know, the whole money thing came up as well as part of that. So it's the impact that whole situation had, but we're looking at it to update it on the level of the DNA, because it's like, you know, we're not necessarily in that situation now. So you know, that's ancestral. So it's a shame if we're kind of living our life from that perhaps poverty consciousness, for example. So it's actually connecting into the chakras. So it's coming in through this whole piece is coming in through the energy body, and particularly the sacral chakra, which can be to do with repression, you know, that Mary mentioned earlier. So you might want to just hold over the sacral chakra, which is just below the belly button. What we're going to work towards is moving towards emotional resilience, because what happens when we have all this stuff pushed down, it makes us, you know, we're not very resilient, because it's like it's all just there, it hasn't gone anywhere, it's just repressed. So we're going to look at working with the sacral chakra to shift from repression into emotional resilience as we start to shift this ancestral pattern. Is there anything that you're feeling, Mary, around that?
No, we're just ready to start moving it, I think.
So what's coming in as well is the mind for me. It's that mental level. So it's interesting because it's coming through the energetic body, the sacral, you know, which is often where a lot of our traumas are held in those. Our survival traumas are often held in those base 3 chakras. But what that's led to is kind of a lot of mental activity. So we're going to look at it in a very holistic way. So we're not going to go to a specific belief or emotion or memory or anything like that. We're just going to have an awareness of how all of this has impacted the mind, so that as we start to shift out of repression into emotional resilience, we can also start to perhaps shift some things on a mental level as well. So
yes, and then I think that activates the that solar plexus area where we start to feel the warmth of movement, you know, where we start to get gut feelings and intuition rather than just the mental exhaustion and fatigue, which is what leads to the anxiety and stresses and fears.
Yes. So we're going to start the balancing. So if you'd like to just hold over the sacral chakra just below the navel, the belly button, and just taking some really nice deep breaths. As we start to clear this pattern. So we're releasing, removing, and clearing all energies that have been keeping us stuck, that no longer serve us, across all dimensions, all parallel universes, all planes of reality, all timelines, all past lives, all future lives, and in all directions of space and time, from now to the beginning of creation and beyond, down to the cellular level and DNA structure. So I'm just going to start that process of activating the DNA, releasing all the repressed, stuck energies, particularly from the sacral area, and downloading from universal consciousness an upgraded version of the DNA that's much more about emotional resilience. So we're changing the expression of the genetic code as we shift the energy around the cells. So just being open to transformation and healing, releasing struggle, status struggle, unfulfilled potential struggle, poverty, consciousness. It's all being cleared across all dimensions and down the ancestral lines, right down to a DNA level. And then you can just briefly hold over either side of the head, just to really integrate this shift. So we're integrating this new functional thinking of emotional resilience. And allowing this to shift on a mental level as well. And then just relax your hands, no need to stress them. And then you can just again place the hand down below the navel. We're just storing this epigenetic update in the ancestral chi just below the navel, also the sacrum and the kidney sinew muscle channel, which is very much related to our ancestral chi. This is the ancestral chi center just below the navel as well. So that's really interesting, isn't it? The relationship between that and the sacral chakra as well in this terms of proximity. and just that sense of that energy in the solar plexus area that Mary picked up as the kind of whole shift in energy starts to happen. Is there anything you want to add, Mary?
The lamina of the 3 generations that I could see that were held and stuck have indeed been able to start to voice, express, stop jiggling around saying, you've got to, we have to shift this. And the next 3, you know, the 3 closest to us are now engaged in this process. It was almost like a blockage is now being able to flow. We can feel that down through into the sacral coccygeal centers, and in fact I think down through the legs and into the earth. There's a nice flow right the way down into the earth energy.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's really strong, isn't it? The earth, the flow into the earth there. Okay, so what's coming up to work with next is the Wei Qi, which is the protective energy that we all have around the surface of the body. And this can be on different levels. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be to do with electromagnetic fields and stuff like that as well. So it's actually to do with EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, which, you know, we've had a huge, if we're looking at the sort of ancestral lines, you know, we've had a huge changes, haven't we, in the electromagnetic fields in recent years, with particularly with 5G, wireless, mobile phones, you know, they're all of this generation. So that's really interesting that is coming up in the session. So we're going to, often we'll look at a specific electromagnetic frequency, for example, 5G, but my sense is it's kind of all of those things. But actually, what I'm being drawn, as I'm tuning into more, I don't know that it is actually about the those kind of electromagnetic frequencies. It's more to do with group thinking, which is something that we can all get affected by. You know, kind of like narratives and, you know, group ideologies that are popular at the time. You know, we can all sort of kind of get into that, and it's not necessarily for our highest good. So we're going to look at this idea of really strengthening our resilience to group thinking, so that we can really start to think for ourselves and have our own sovereignty. And for me, this is really interesting that this has come up after the piece about emotional resilience, because if we're always looking to something outside of ourselves for the answers, we're not very resilient, because someone could change at any moment. You know, that could change at any moment. But as soon as we start to come within and find the answers within, then that's much more powerful place. So this is really going to strengthen the Wei Qi for group thinking, so that we're not necessarily kind of sort of aligning with everything just because it's popular opinion. So do you have any more sense of that, Mary, at all, in terms of the ancestral piece?
There's something about, is there something about the gut lining, about discernment through the lining of the, you know, what we take in?
Yeah, I'm getting at it via the enteric nervous system.
Yeah, well, the enteric nervous system, I was seeing it through the small intestine, but the, you know, how we take in any form of energy, food, ideas, beliefs, but we have to decide and discern what we want to keep and what we don't. And it looks to me like the enteric nervous system and the, well, yes, the enteric has got frayed. So it's not quite sure what to select and what not to.
Yes, yeah, and that would connect in with this idea of the Wei Qi, you know, not just taking stuff in, because it's meant to protect us from things that aren't nourishing and nurturing for us. So, and the same with the enteric nervous system, we're meant to really discern and reject anything that's toxic for us. So we've got that.
That's like ancestral leaky gut syndrome, isn't
it? Let's have a look and see. So it's interesting, isn't it, that we're going to this after doing that sacral piece, you know, because there's obviously a strong correlation, particularly, you know, with repressed emotions and then discerning, actually, this is toxic and I'm not going to take any more of this in, you know, whereas perhaps it was like before repressed. So my sense is that this is like still part of the clearing of the last piece. So whilst this doesn't have an ancestral component as such, it is still unwinding the very deep work we did earlier around class struggle, emotional repression, and that this is the next layer to it of really strengthening our bubble so that we can be in our own sovereignty. So if you'd like to, you can just hold over the belly button area again. And we're just taking more resources into the Wei Qi. So that we have more protection from all kinds of electromagnetic frequencies, but particularly group thinking that may not be aligned with our what's for our highest good. And then we're connecting that into both the small intestine and the enteric nervous system for discernment, so that we can really start to discern that which is nourishing from that which is toxic. So there was this sense with the ancestral piece we did earlier of just needing to swallow it or repress it all. And when we do that, we can no longer discern, because we're meant to have a gag reflex. We're meant to have this reflex of, actually, this is not healthy for me. This is you know, I'm being bullied here, or I'm being repressed here. And we're meant to have a gag with kind of a response. But if the status, the class status and things at the time was that wasn't possible, that's all being held and repressed. So this is allowing that discernment, and it's just really lit up. I don't know if you felt that, Mary. It just really shifted then. This is allowing this discernment to come in, so we can really have that kind of protective field around us to know what is nourishing and what is toxic. How's that looking for you, Mary?
it? It was very interesting, because when we very first tuned in, my sense was that laminate of Ancestral was saying to us, well, to me, you're not going to be able to handle this. There's so much crap here. You won't handle it. But having done that first piece, it has not just given us current generation, more resource, but them as well. Yes. So suddenly this piece, they were able to sort out a lot of the metabolic debris themselves without it having to come down to this generation at all. So we didn't have to handle it. They didn't swamp us at all, because we've already sent some of that resilience upwards.
I felt it. It was like a spark of light, and it happened very suddenly. Absolutely. It was like a light bulb moment. And that makes a lot of sense. You know, this idea of, I know that you've spoken about this in previous classes, Mary, this kind of how, you know, the ancestral lines can almost become frozen in trauma. And how by kind of unfreezing that repression piece, it's allowing a lot of movement start happening, which was almost, it was almost itching. It was what I was feeling at the beginning, this kind of movement, but it's really, it was almost like a frozen movement. It was like a shuffling, whereas now it's actually can go somewhere, which feels really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can get a sense, everybody who's listening, you might be able to already start to feel that in your own heart centers, as there's a more heartfelt connection between you and some of those ancestors. I think we're looking at about 5 generations back, but a much more heartfelt connection where they're saying, yeah, we can link to you now because we're no longer so repressed in this incapacity to, can't speak, can't feel heartfeltly. It was also in the head. Anyway, Sarah, sorry, over to you.
Yeah, no, that feels wonderful. Mary, I'm actually wondering, the sense I'm getting is that this has sort of like set in motion something, it's like a starting point in a way. It's created a lot of movement. It's like clearing the ground, but it's almost like that's enough for tonight, because it's just it's like cleared the ground so that we can do the work in the actual course. That's the feeling I'm getting, Mary.
I absolutely agree with you, and I think there is no more to do now. That was the big piece. And I think individually, if there's anybody who thinks, well, this is interesting, but it's not for me, I think you're going to feel the difference anyway, because I can feel it coming down into each of your own heart centers. Can I just say one more thing very quickly? I know several people here have said, how can you know this is happening if you don't know who your ancestors are, and if you don't know the history? It's very interesting, but as soon as you start doing this work, you'll start receiving stuff, actual stuff. Somebody will get in touch with you and say, oh, I've just found a photograph album, or like Toby's great uncle said, oh yes, I know all about that. So what I'm saying is, just the piece that we've already done, I wouldn't be at all surprised if something doesn't start shifting in your life, and you'll notice the change.
Absolutely. So did you want to close the healing session, Mary? And then I see there are various questions. So for anybody who wants to stay after the healing, we can answer the questions that you have as well. So I'll let you close.
I am going to send heartfelt thanks, love, and gratitude to all of our ancestors who were involved in this piece, for our gateway ancestors who have kept us all held in this beautiful place and state, and allow everyone to disperse to their rightful places in their ancestral tree. Thank you. And I'm going to blow the candle out.